A következőkben a Nemzetközösség elnevezésű nemzetközi szervezet munkatársát, Michael Armstrong urat fogjuk hallani. A Nemzetközösség titkársága a Nemzetközösség 54 tagállamának kormányközi szervezete. A szervezet szakpolitikai útmutatás, technikai segítséget és tanácsadási szolgáltatásokat nyújt a tagországoknak. A Sport a fejlesztésért és a békéért program támogatja a nemzetközösség országait a sport fenntartható fejlődéséhez való hozzájárulásának előmozdítását és védelmét célzó politika és stratégia megerősítésében. Az előadás címe a testnevelésnek, testmozgásnak és a sportnak az ENSZ fenntartható fejlődési céljaihoz való hozzájárulásának figyelemmel kísérése. Következik Michael Armstrong.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today and for the wonder of modern technology and allowing me to engage in this important conversation all the way from New Zealand. Thank you especially to the team that worked hard behind the scenes to pull this together, this important conversation and conference together. I'm Mike Armstrong, the Sport for Development and Peace Program Manager at the Commonwealth Secretariat, and today I'll be speaking to you about the global measurement of the contribution of PE, physical activity and sport to the SDGs. Sport brings the whole world together. This is a statement we hear quite often about the power of sport to change the world. I think many of us would agree with it in principle, but between us, we need to answer the question as to what exactly this change is and across the diversity of different possible outcomes it could be. And then we can work towards maximizing it. It's not enough to say that sport has the power to change the world. We need to actively demonstrate this change at scale and have the ability to explain to key stakeholders, especially at the government level, how that change came about. Indeed, the interaction of sport and play with health and education outcomes has been recognised through the 2030 Agenda, where sport was acknowledged as an important enabler for sustainable development. At the 71st session in the UN General Assembly, the resolution on sport as a means to promote education, health, development and peace was adopted. However, to ensure that sport, physical education and physical activity is indeed used as an enabler to an effective and sustainable manner and to maximise its contributions, we need to track its application and follow its evolution as a tool for development. Otherwise, anyone can say they use sport to make a change, and equally someone else can claim that it didn't have that impact. The key to moving beyond these claims of impact is to establish and test detailed theories of change as to how physical education, physical activity and sport can impact the global goals. Through greater evidence along these results chains from inputs to impacts, we begin to see mechanisms for change and the interrelated nature of the global goals. Impact at scale requires consideration in the international efforts to ensure our activities are maximizing benefits across all areas from health to gender equality to economic development and building sustainable cities. Understanding this interaction between sport, physical education and physical activity with the sustainable development is at the core of the Commonwealth Secretariat's work. The Commonwealth Secretariat is the principal intergovernmental body for the 54 states of the Commonwealth, and we're responsible for progressing and achieving the shared goals of advancing democracy, development and respect for diversity. Through our strategic plan, the Commonwealth has been mandated to assist member countries to enhance the positive contribution that sport can make to sustainable development, health, and building peaceful and just societies. Our work in this area focuses on these three outcomes: strengthening national and international policy, building capacity for stakeholders and officials, and improving monitoring and evaluation of the contribution of sport to sustainable development. On the policy front, we provide technical assistance to support countries to develop, adopt, and implement national sport-related policies and strategies that deliver against the SDGs. The Secretariat also focuses on building capacity and capability to ensure stakeholders and officials are able to maximise sport's contribution to sustainable development. The Commonwealth Secretariat, along with the International Platform of Sport for Development and the Australian Government, recently launched a massive open online course on sport for development and peace. And the first iteration has seen over 3,000 learners from across 160 countries take part. Finally, measuring impact. The Commonwealth works with national and regional governments to ensure we can monitor and evaluate how sport is contributing to sustainable development. We develop theories of change and results frameworks aligned to national development plans and the SDGs, and it's been shown to be effective in driving increased visibility of the sectors and its contributions, promoting cross-ministerial and cross-sectoral partnerships, and providing a basis for increased evidence-based investment. Now more than ever, the contribution of sport to sustainable development needs to be closely monitored due to the significant impacts and threats posed by the COVID-19 pandemic. This was recently recognised by Commonwealth ministers responsible for sport, who called for a common measurement approach to justify investment and ensure sustained recovery of the sector. In 2017, at the 6th International Conference of Ministers and Senior Officials responsible for physical education and sport, there was a call for greater alignment of sport policy to the SDGs through the formation of the Kazan Action Plan. The need for enhanced and consistent indicators to measure sport's contribution to prioritise SDGs was noted as a specific action at this meeting and in this plan. For the last few years, an inclusive global initiative has been underway to develop a common framework for measuring and ultimately maximising the contribution of physical education, physical activity and sport to the SDGs. This initiative has been coordinated by the Commonwealth Secretariat in collaboration with a global steering group consisting of UNESCO, UNDESA, the IOC, the IPC, and a number of member states and sector experts. A targeted approach has been adopted to ensure we're creating clear indicators and targets for sports contribution. This has involved developing detailed and evidence-based series of change for where sport and physical education can contribute at scale. This has also meant putting in our focus, prioritizing our focus within Agenda 2030. Rather than building results chains and theories of change across all 169 SDG targets and 231 indicators, we've been focused on these 10 SDGs and their 36 associated targets outlined in the Kazan Action Plan. An iterative process of development, testing, and redesign has guided this initiative over the last 2 years. I'm pleased to highlight that earlier this year, the 4th and final iteration of the model indicators was produced, and at the last steering group meeting, they had been provisionally endorsed by the group. The framework consists of 27 cross-cutting indicators that provide an overview of sport, physical education, and physical activities contribution to these SDGs. There's also an accompanying set of SDG-specific indicators that can be used to measure specific contributions in different contexts. The framework's been aligned with the UN Action Plan on Sport for Development and Peace, which includes a focus on improving sport-related data. It also aims to coherently support UNESCO's Quality Physical Education Initiative and the World Health Organization's Global Action Plan on Physical Activity, as well as the other 4 actions of the Kazan Action Plan. The indicator framework has been based on a results-based management approach, therefore drawing on a methodology that informs development planning across governments in the UN system, as well as with leading development and non-governmental agencies. This requires articulating the flow of results along chains from inputs through to impacts and identifying and testing these connections. As a methodology, it also allows for diverse actors within a system to orient themselves and understand their role in delivering on broader non-sport impacts. The indicators themselves have been grouped into the following 6 domains of impact: participation in organized sport and physical activity, active school and educational environments, social impact, inclusion and equality, economic development and employment, environmental sustainability, and the governance of sport. It is vital, however, to note that these impact areas are highly interrelated and align with the interconnected nature of the SDGs. A guiding principle for the development of the indicators has been to ensure coherence with existing frameworks and data sets across these domain areas. This is with a view to reducing the monitoring burden for stakeholders and member states, and to enable existing data to be utilised in our efforts to measure and evidence the contribution of sport to the SDGs at a global scale. I'm pleased to share a few examples from these indicator data sets and from the indicator documents. This is a sample of the indicator framework here, focusing on indicator 3, which looks at the population who participate once a week in sport and exercise. As you can see, the indicators are arranged with information on potential sources for the data, the availability, as well as information and notes on utilizing the indicators themselves. It also outlines the link to the specific SDG targets so that they can be utilized to report against them. This indicator, indicator 3, looks at the percentage of the population participating once a week in sport or exercise. As has been noted by previous speakers, physical activity is one of the leading risk factors for mortality from NCDs, and this is the leading cause of mortality in the world, responsible for 48% of deaths in low and middle income countries. NCDs are expected to cost up to over $40 trillion in cumulative health costs over the next 2 decades. Increasing physical activity is a low-cost, high-impact tool in overcoming this threat and delivering on SDG 3.4.1. School-based sport and physical activity has a critical role to play here in developing and establishing physical literacy, which provides the basis for lifelong participation in physical activity and associated health and wellbeing benefits. As you can see from this indicator, we're tracking the percentage of the population who participate once a week in sport and exercise to establish global baselines for this and other indicators outlined in the toolkit. This builds on data from the Global Action Plan on Physical Activity and isolates the contributions that sport and exercise are making to those overall physical activity levels. As you can see from the highlighted area, the potential data sources included in the toolkit include global physical activity questionnaires, as well as use of international classification for time use statistics. Through alignment with existing frameworks and enhanced data science capabilities within the initiative, we've been able to collate some initial data sets across the diverse publicly available data sources and submissions from pilot countries to produce data sets such as these. They give us a snapshot of performance against each of the indicators and provide valuable baselines for change in global performance over time in these indicators. This example here, again from indicator 3, has drawn on national reporting mechanisms, as well as, in this instance, data from Eurostat to show on a country basis the percentage of the population participating at least once a week in sport or physical activity. The background architecture to this data presentation also allows for us to input further data sources when they become available and populate across all 27 category 1 or primary indicators in our framework. Another example here, focusing in on educational outcomes or quality physical education. We've been working with UNESCO to ensure coherence with the quality physical education guidelines and understand the role of PE in contributing to the SDGs. There's good evidence regarding the contribution that high quality physical education and sport-based activity can make across a range of educational outcomes, as well as contributing to overall physical activity and development of healthy lifestyles. Indicator 4 here outlines this with proposed measures for the amount of time spent in physical activity in alignment with QPE surveys and linked to SDG 3.4, as well as SDGs 4.1 and 4.2. Looking more broadly at the role of SDGs in provision of physical education, we can see positive trends towards equal access to the provision of physical activity for girls in line with SDG 5.1. However, there's been little global change in access to physical education for people with disabilities in line with SDG 10 on reduced inequalities. A key component for the delivery of quality physical education is access to appropriate facilities and equipment. This has been shown to be a severely limiting factor, especially considering more than half of countries' surveys reporting their PE infrastructure as insufficient. You can see here the interconnected nature of the SDGs, where changes in one outcome area can link to other SDGs. For example, here, SDG 11.7, relating to the average share of built-up areas open for public use for sport, leisure, and active recreation, and the role that this may play in access to physical education and overall physical activity levels. The progress achieved to date in developing a coherent measurement framework and indicators for sport and the SDGs has been based on an inclusive multi-stakeholder approach. Member states, the sport movement, UN and intergovernmental organisations, as well as NGOs and civil society have been engaged in the development process. An open-ended working group structure has been established, which has brought together more than 250 stakeholder organisations to feed into the development of these indicators. The third of these meetings, the third annual meeting, will be taking place on December 2nd and 3rd of this year. Beyond these structures, we have 11 countries, 7 intergovernmental organisations, and 6 international sports bodies and NGOs that have initiated action towards implementing these indicators and reporting back data. This has primarily been through 2 avenues on the country basis. First, through mapping existing monitoring and evaluation systems to the SDGs, and second, through development and adoption of national M&E systems. Japan has been a leader in the first approach and have generated a great deal of data across sports contribution to the SDGs. You can see here the example for indicator 15, measuring the percentage of leadership post holders in sport organisations who are female. This data relates directly to SDG indicator 5.5.2 on the proportion of women in managerial positions. Critically, this indicator is also coherent with data from the Sport for Generation Equality framework and the Council of Europe's All-In initiative. The second approach has been through enhancing the national monitoring and evaluation systems on sport and the SDGs. Jamaica has taken this approach alongside Namibia, Lesotho, and Mauritius. In Jamaica, for instance, a critical aspect of this has been to institute a policy framework aligned to sector development priorities. This slide illustrates how Jamaica has been able to articulate the link between, for example, enhanced sport and physical activity participation and priorities in the national sport policy through to the National Development Plan using SDG 3.4. The vertical coherence has been a key factor in raising the profile of sport and physical activity and physical education as a development tool. Importantly, it's also driven horizontal coherence and established key partnerships, both in monitoring and evaluation and in delivery, with the likes of ministries for education, health, justice, national statistics agencies, and of course, the academic sector. The global pandemic has posed significant challenges to the delivery of sport, physical education, and physical activity, and highlighted further need for monitoring and evaluating across the entire results chain to take an evidence-based response and continue to advocate for the benefits of the sector. Data in line with the sport and SDG indicators has been valuable in monitoring this response and gauging impact. For example, measuring levels of activity has become increasingly important for assessing the impact of social distancing measures and gathering data related to changes in flow and implications for how physical activity contributes to the reduction in NCDs in line with SDG 3.4.1. Looking at some of Australian survey data, we can see marked declines in activity levels, with 44% of Australians reporting doing less physical activity since their lockdown began. This data also shows the value in disaggregated data, with declines most marked in 30 to 39-year-olds. Interestingly, the 40 to 49-year-olds had been able to maintain much of their activity levels more so than other groups, and women also reporting far greater likelihood of engaging with and enjoying online physical activity content. Understanding these demographic differences can help with targeted responses to maintaining and promoting activity across populations and ensuring no one is left behind. We've also seen a number of governments producing content and campaigns to promote continued physical activity and other health practices during the lockdown. This is an important indicator in this sport and SDG framework. A number of these programs have been specifically targeting concerns arising from reduced physical activity among young people due to an inability to go to school and general restrictions due to COVID-19. Capturing data in relation to this activity allows for the ongoing learning and refinement of new delivery models and highlights the important contribution the sector is making in terms of promoting health and well-being during the pandemic. Along with awareness campaigns, we've seen some value adaptations in the delivery of sport, physical activity, and physical education. Recognizing the critical importance of these programs to physical and mental health and fostering community cohesion and inclusion, the Commonwealth created the Commonwealth Moves initiative to help sustain sector activity and work with specific providers to develop resources to support online delivery. The shift to enhanced digitization has raised concerns around the equality of access and ensuring no one is left behind due to the digital divide. At the same time, it provides opportunities to develop adaptive programming and ensure everyone has access to the mental health benefits and physical benefits of sport and physical activity. There is also a concern around alternative requirements for safeguarding in the online environment and ensuring the protection of women and girls in line with SDG 5.2 and children in line with SDG 16.2 in particular. I want to share some key learnings that have emerged from this initiative to date and which can inform further research and data gathering in relation to sport, physical education, and physical activities contribution to the SDGs. First, monitoring changes in policy, governance, and integrity is vital to robustly evidence the contribution to the SDGs and ensure the effective performance of the sport, physical education, and physical activity system. This includes monitoring and evaluating across institutional factors such as policies, resourcing, and the provision of training to personnel. These factors are strongly aligned with SDG 16 and SDG 17. They're also mediating factors for the ability of the sector to maximize its contribution to other areas of sustainable development. For example, you can see here research by the National Sport Governance Observer, which shows the predominant focus on national sporting organisations on anti-doping, while other crucial areas are less represented in policy frameworks such as gender equality, athlete rights, or environmental sustainability. From the quality physical education perspective, we can look at some of the sport and SDG indicators under SDG 4, which focus on key inputs for the delivery of quality PE and track important aspects such as budget allocation, the provision of specialist teachers and training, adequate facilities, and the implications of changes in these areas in terms of educational outcomes, lifelong health and well-being, or other areas of sustainable development. This leads to the other key learning. Further research is needed on the connection between sport and physical education related data and broader human development outcomes. Gathering global data on sport, physical activity, and physical education in the SDGs provides a valuable opportunity to test and validate theories of change and identify the best avenues for maximizing impact. This often will involve complex systems mapping and understanding the complex nature of and interactions between these impact areas of the global goals. It also means focusing on measures beyond health and education, but including, for example, the impacts of investment in quality physical education and school sports on building active cities in SDG 11, promoting gender equality in SDG 5, or driving economic growth and decent employment through SDG 8, or even, as the previous speaker mentioned, the environmental concerns and environmental impacts in line with physical education provision and in line with SDG 11 and 12 and 13. Understanding the impacts of the rapidly changing modes and delivery of PE and sport makes this requirement for further research more urgent, and it amplifies the impact of this research can have through ensuring that what takes place in classrooms, on courts, and increasingly through screens is promoting an inclusive and sustainably developed world. Having strong evidence on these results, change, and impacts can have significant influence in driving policy and promoting contributions from the sector. For example, research into the sports sector's contribution to SDG 8 have shown it an effective driver of employment, and particularly youth employment, in line with SDGs 8.5 and 8.6. This data here from Eurostat shows that in every country where data was gathered, the percentage of people aged between 15 and 29 in sport employment was far greater than the share of people aged in total employment, showing the vast overrepresentation of young people in sport. Building on this, countries like Namibia have taken this learning on board and are actively targeting the sports sector in their national development plans as a mechanism to drive youth employment in their country. Physical education is also a vital aspect of national development, and alignment through the SDGs can promote the visibility of the work across ministries and sectors. We're beginning to see this through the development of physical education policies and recognition of physical education and sports policies linked to specific national development outcomes, particularly the reduction of non-communicable diseases in line with SDG 3.4.1, promoting mental health and well-being in line with SDG 3.4.2, as well as educational outcomes. Enhanced data on sports contribution to the SDGs will allow us to test theories of change at scale and refine the understanding to ultimately deliver more effective policies and investments to maximize the contributions of sport, physical education, and physical activity to the SDGs. In the meantime, establishing a common framework and data sets has built a common language for describing sports impact and fostering valuable cross-sector partnerships in research and delivery, and building a common language for impact and progressing the sector. We hope to continue to progress the development of these indicators, and then that involvement in the initiative continues to profile the contribution of physical education and physical activity at the global stage, that we can streamline data gathering and reduce the monitoring burden for stakeholders across education, sport, and government, and establish a common knowledge base, evidence, and shared resources, as well as promoting a platform for further research. A primary vehicle for this continued development in sport and SDG indicators is the third open-ended working group, as I mentioned previously. This meeting will be held on the 2nd and 3rd of December, with the theme of taking the indicators from development to further implementation. Should any participants be interested in attending and hearing more about this initiative, you can reach out to us at the following email address that should be on screen now. I thank you very much for your time and giving the overview of this initiative. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Armstrong, for this great presentation. You have one question from the audience, which I will translate to you now, or at least connect it to you. Participating once a week in sport is better than nothing, but is much less than the recommended 150 minutes per week. Why is this discrepancy between the indicator and the recommendation? What do you think?
No, it's a very good question. In development of the indicators, we've been looking for simple and available data sets to communicate the contributions. There are more detailed indicators that look into the depth and breadth of that engagement in sport and the degree to which it's contributing to the overall physical activity levels. But gathering global data sets across all countries engaged, and particularly developing contexts, requires at times simpler indicators and relying on available data. And that's why that indicator has been phrased in that manner. But in the more detailed SDG context-specific indicators, there are some in relation to time use as well. Thank you.
Thank you too very much for the presentation, for the answer, and for being here with us today. Thank you very much, Mr. Armstrong.
Készült Magyarország kormánya megbízásából az Európai Unió támogatásával.